reliable sources that Jake and not Rebecca went into a business on the tira 3 days in a row. The 7th, the 8th, and the 9th.
3 days before a 7-month-old boy vanished, a TikToker witnessed Jake Haro behaving in a way that still haunts them today.
On the 7th, he donated a bunch of baby products, clothing, and some other apparatuses, all brand new, not even a scuff, home.
Something was off. Something that now, in hindsight, feels like a warning no one knew how to read. That baby Emmanuel would be reported missing just days later. And while police searched, while headlines stirred, while social media speculated, no one knew that behind the viral panic, a horrifying truth was already set in motion. So before you scroll past this story, before you say, "Not another one," ask yourself this: what if just one person had looked a little closer? What if one platform, one voice, one view made the difference? If you believe stories like this deserve more than just a headline, stay with me. Watch until the very end, because silence is easy. Justice never is. Beyond the immediate tragedy of Emmanuel's disappearance and presumed death lies a troubling reckoning with systemic failures. First, the judicial system's leniency looms large. In 2018, Jake Haro avoided prison despite inflicting severe brain injuries on another infant. The district attorney, Michael Hestron, did not mince words. If that judge had done his job, Emmanuel would be alive today. This plea deal and probation, intended to offer rehabilitation, instead left a dangerous man in a position to harm again. Then there are the cracks in child protective services. After Emmanuel's disappearance, his 2-year-old sibling was removed from the home, suggesting clear risks within the family. But questions remain. Were earlier warning signs overlooked? Were resources insufficient? Lastly, the case exposed the fragile balance between social media and justice. As misinformation spread rapidly online, it muddled public perception and complicated the facts. Viral posts, theories, and accusations often drowned out sober reporting, making it harder for the community to understand the truth, and for investigators to keep control of the narrative. Emmanuel's story is not just about one family's tragedy. It's about a system that failed to protect him. A system still grappling with how to prevent the next. Even as charges mount and investigations deepen, key questions remain haunting this case like shadows. First, where is Emmanuel's body? Authorities say they have a strong lead, but have not revealed details. Without physical evidence, justice feels painfully incomplete. Then there's the TikToker's sighting. What exactly did they witness 3 days before Emmanuel vanished? Media headlines hint at a mysterious encounter. Yet, no credible source or official investigation has confirmed what Jake Haro was doing or seen doing around August 11. This marks a critical boundary between fact and speculation, one that must not be crossed without evidence. Perhaps most troubling of all is the question of justice itself. How did a man with a prior conviction for harming an infant avoid prison time and continue to have access to children? What systemic breakdowns allowed this cycle of harm to continue? And finally, what evidence remains undisclosed? Are there surveillance videos, digital records, or child protective service reports that could shed light on earlier intervention opportunities? Until these questions are answered, the full story of Emmanuel Haro's life and death remains unfinished. And for a community left searching, unfinished stories are the hardest to bear. From the very beginning, investigators sensed something was off. What was first framed as a desperate search for a kidnapped child quickly began to collapse under the weight of conflicting evidence. Law enforcement noted early inconsistencies in Rebecca Haro's story. There was no surveillance footage showing the alleged assault, no witnesses, and no forensic evidence that Emmanuel had even been at the scene she described. Within days, The case shifted from a missing person investigation to a suspected homicide. Detectives served search warrants at the Haro's Cabazon home. They pulled surveillance footage, combed through digital communications, and seized Jake Haro's vehicle. Then, investigators went further, deploying cadaver dogs across remote areas near Freeway 60, including Moreno Valley. And shockingly, Jake himself joined them. But in the middle of this investigation, a TikToker came forward with something that chilled viewers to their core. They claimed that 3 days before Emmanuel was reported missing, they saw Jake Haro at a Tira community market, allegedly selling a bag of baby clothes onesies, tiny socks, toys, clothes they said were clearly for a child around Emmanuel's age. At the time, the encounter felt strange. But after the missing report hit headlines, it felt like something far more disturbing. To date, this sighting hasn't been officially confirmed by investigators, but it adds a haunting layer to the timeline. Why would a father sell off his infant's belongings just days before that same child would vanish? The closer detectives looked, the more it seemed Emmanuel hadn't vanished at all. He was gone. And someone already knew why. In the quiet town of Yucaipa, California, August 2025 brought a nightmare no one could have imagined. 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro was reported missing his mother, claiming she was knocked unconscious in a store parking lot, and that her baby had been kidnapped. The story stunned the community. Police launched an Amber Alert. Reporters swarmed. But behind that public panic, something didn't add up. What started as a desperate search for a missing infant quickly unraveled into something darker, more deliberate. Investigators discovered cracks in the story, contradictions in the timeline, and eventually they uncovered a history of violence. Emmanuel wasn't taken by a stranger. August 15th to 18th. As the search intensifies, investigators notice the inconsistencies. Rebecca's timeline wobbles. There's no surveillance showing the alleged assault. Warrants are executed. The case begins to shift from missing persons to criminal suspicion. August 19th to 21st. Search efforts expand. Jake Haro's vehicle is seized. Authorities begin combing through the Haro's Cabazon residence. The public is still pleading for answers. But detectives believe they already know what happened. August 22nd. Both parents are arrested. Jake and Rebecca Haro are charged with murder and filing a false police report. Bail is set at $1 million each. And suddenly, the search for a missing child becomes a homicide investigation. August 24th to 26th. An inmate in the jail where Jake is held steps forward. He claims Jake confessed saying Emmanuel died by accidental suffocation, and that his body was dumped in a trash can. Investigators scour Moreno Valley, but no remains are found. The district attorney announces what many feared. Emmanuel likely died days before he was ever reported missing. August 28th. In a jailhouse interview, Jake denies a history of abuse. But prosecutors reveal his past, specifically a 2018 child abuse conviction involving another infant who suffered lifelong brain damage. That child survived. Emmanuel did not. September 4. A court date is set. Arraignment looms. No plea has been entered. And Emmanuel is still missing. Each one of these dates tells a story. But together, they reveal a horrifying truth that no one can look away from. When investigators closed in, the charges came fast and they came heavy. Jake Haro and Rebecca Haro now stand accused of the unthinkable. Felony murder of their own child, and filing a false police report to cover it up. Each faces a $1 million bail, and each remains in custody. But the deeper shock came not just from the charges themselves, but from what prosecutors revealed about Jake's past. In 2018, Jake was charged with child cruelty after another infant in his care suffered permanent brain damage. That child survived, but would live with a lifelong disability. And still, Jake served no prison time. He was granted probation and work release. The district attorney called it, quote, an outrageous error in judgment, one that may have cost Emmanuel his life. According to public records, Jake was sentenced in 2023, just 2 years before Emmanuel's birth. Now, those same legal systems must try to hold him and Rebecca accountable for a second tragedy. Their arraignment, originally scheduled for late August, has been postponed to September 4, 2025. No pleas have been entered. Both are represented by public defenders, and there is already a conflict of interest concern. Because when both defendants tell different stories, the courtroom becomes a battlefield. And at the center of it all is a baby who still hasn't been found. This story isn't entertainment. It's a call to conscience. Behind every headline, every viral post, every whispered rumor, there was a vulnerable child whose life was cut tragically short. Emmanuel's absence leaves a silent, aching void, a gap in our collective accountability. The grief of families left behind, the frustration of a community searching for answers, and the deep ripples of systemic failure all demand something more than silence. They demand honest reflection, meaningful change, and unwavering vigilance. Because if we don't learn from Emmanuel's story, then how many more will we lose? This is not just a case. It's a human tragedy, and it deserves to be remembered with compassion, with respect, and with resolve. If this story moved you, please hit subscribe and ring the bell here on Captain Joachim. Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. What failures in our system must we reform to protect the most vulnerable among us? Because this story matters. Every lost child is a solemn reminder that justice must be relentless. No exceptions, no delays. Thank you for listening, and for keeping Emmanuel's memory alive.